All right, next up, Ole Miss and Tulane. That kicks off at 2:30 Central. You can catch that on ESPN2, which seems like that should be a better TV game than this for this. That game will be in New Orleans. Over-under of 61, which feels a little low to me. Ole Miss is a 6.5-point road favorite. That makes for an implied final of 34-27 in Ole Miss's favor. ESPN's FPI favors Ole Miss by 11. And let me pull up the other ones. I just put those in this afternoon. Okay. SP Plus has got Ole Miss by 6. Sagarin has got Ole Miss by 12. Let's start when Ole Miss has got the ball. Look, this offense, its bread was allegedly going to be buttered on Quinshon Judkins. Ole Miss a very pedestrian 4.3 yards per rushing play in its opener against Mercer. Guess what? That mattered none because Ole Miss threw it for nearly 13 yards every time it tried to pass. Tulane's defense was pretty good against a good South Alabama team last week, averaging 4 yards a rushing play and 4.5 per passing play. We kind of think of offense with Tulane, but last week its defense was pretty good too.
Yeah, Tulane is just a well-coached football team by Willie Fritz there, and they're coming off, a trip to the Cotton Bowl where they beat USC. They have a senior or a experienced quarterback there, Michael Pratt. Yeah, he is a senior, and I didn't want to misspeak there, but he's a guy that's been around. He's played in big-time ball. I'll get into their offense, what I saw with him, watched all 22 of Tulane. I watched all 22 of Ole Miss, so I'll get into some keys there. But this is a fantastic quarterback matchup, and there's a reason that normally I knock AP top 25 because I think it's just voted on by a bunch of sheep that have no idea what they're voting on half the time. And they just go ahead and pick things because what they see in a magazine or something like that. The fact that Clemson is still ranked in the top 25 tells you all you need to know after that debacle last night. But Tulane is a good football team. They're worthy of their ranking, and Ole Miss should even be a little bit higher after what we saw. I know it was Mercer, but hey, two teams with momentum, two teams that have a lot of excitement coming into the year, two teams that have really good quarterback play, and we'll talk about that as we get into it, Chris.
Yeah, don't be a sheep. Yeah, Ole Miss, I think the thing that impressed me last week was just how many targets Ole Miss found. And still, Franklin still I don't think is healthy. Caleb Priestcorn, their transfer tight end from Memphis, I don't think played. I'll double-check that as I've got the box score in front of me. Of course, we know about what Harris did. He caught, 3 touchdowns in the first 4 minutes, did Trey Harris, 4 for the game. Yeah, Priestcorn's not on here. Judkins was 13 for 62 rushing or 13 for 60. They still score 73. And I get it's Mercer, but scoring 73 against anybody right now is hard to do with the new clock rules. I was just blown away with how good that offense was last week.
Yeah, they were crisp. When you have Jackson Dart and what he's able to do in terms of hitting guys, throwing them open. Okay, that's not something Jackson Dart was just throwing kind of to a spot in a general direction last year. It seemed like he was just trying to get his legs under him in the SEC. But my goodness, what I saw on Trey Harris's first touchdown, if you go back and look at all 22, he's running a glance route, which is what is like a deep skinny post, almost between a slant and a skinny post there. And Jackson Dart sees the corner that's playing over top of him leak inside on the leverage, and the ability to throw it to his back shoulder with Trey Harris running in, and the cohesion between those two in the first game, their first ever game playing together, for Harris to be able to stop, catch it on his back shoulder, spin out of it, and run for a touchdown. Super impressive. He also hit some back shoulder throws along the sideline to different guys. I thought Jackson Dart was doing some great things out there in game one. So a lot to be excited about. But they didn't even have to really get Quinshon Judkins going, but we know that he can. And that will be the key to this is, okay, how many resources does Tulane commit to the box defensively to stop Quinshon Judkins? If they can do it with 6 or less consistently and not have to, drop a 7th guy down into the box, get a safety involved, then that way they'll be able to try to keep their numbers game better in the pass game against Ole Miss. But I think to your point, they found some weapons there. We know what Watkins can do. We know what Dade has done there. Dayton Wade has done in the past for Ole Miss. But now to have Trey Harris there and added into the mix on top of Spencer Spencer Saunders was the backup quarterback. Jackson Dart's legs with Quinshad Junkins, what he's able to do with his own legs, and now the added dimension of accuracy in his pass game. I was really impressed by Ole Miss and what they did offensively.
I think the question is, can Ole Miss get stops? It did against Mercer. It didn't, for the most part, against good teams a year ago. Pretty good in the opener. We've said something to upset Oreo. He's pretty fired up about this.
Well, Chris Taylor made a comment on right here. Chris, thank you for joining, buddy. He's a pal. He's been around in my stuff for a while here, but we appreciate Chris joining. Lane Kiffin made the comment after Mercer scored early on in the game. They asked him what he said, and Kiffin said, "We paid you a lot of money here to get here, Pete. That is not what we're expecting." When Mercer ripped off a big score there, so he said that in the post game press conference. So Pete Golding for sure. Lane's not going to tolerate any of that, so he's got to get it ramped up here against a very good Tulane team.
Is that Chris Taylor of the LA Dodgers?
Nah, they're a little bit different, Chris Taylor. This man, if you need some insurance done, Chris Taylor can help you out over there. He's a good guy.
I wouldn't expect him to show up with two Braves fans doing this podcast after this last weekend, but that's another podcast we could do. Yeah, seriously, Ole Miss. I mean, look, Tulane's offense under Michael Pratt. That's a kid that could have probably transferred anywhere in the country. Chose to stay for Willie Fritz in Tulane. How do you handle him if you're Pete Golding and Ole Miss?
All right, so here's the thing. You know that you trust a quarterback when you open up the game in empty. You let him see the coverage, walk up to the line of scrimmage. He checks to his receiver, says, "Hey, we got cover one up here. I know I've got man coverage." He checks the route to a man beater and throws a perfect dime down the sideline just in time to beat that cover one safety that comes across. That's what Michael Pratt did, and he'll do that kind of stuff all night. Also, Tulane runs some razzle-dazzle type stuff, some reverse pass type stuff that Michael Pratt came around and hit a 48-yard touchdown pass to. They are not a team to be, played with when it comes around on the receiving front. They have two guys in Jaquan Jackson and Lawrence Keys that are deep play threats and guys that you cannot afford to get burnt by. Here's the thing, Chris, Mercer did not, really test Ole Miss a lot. They've got a bunch of transfer guys, John Baptiste, Montgomery, Anthony, Gaddy Jr., Saunders Jr., all these guys that have transferred into that Pete Golding defense. How do they all come together, and what are we going to see when there is some adversity? Because there will be times of adversity against a good team down there in New Orleans. So I'm excited to see that element of it as much as I am anything. How does Pete Golding and that defense respond to adversity when Michael Pratt and those talented receivers and the physical offensive line of Tulane get a little bit momentum going at some point in the game? Because they will at some point. And how does Ole Miss respond?
Another thing, and I'm trying to, I've had the Oreo mute on here. I'm trying to sort that. I think Tulane got a few turnovers in that one against South Florida last week too. That's one of those things to watch. And I think Ole Miss is going to win this game, but if Tulane can put up a crooked number in the score,
what's the spread?
It's about 6.5. Tulane got 2 picks last week and three fumble recoveries. Now Ole Miss is not going to turn it over 5 times, but worth the mention there, given what I mean. I thought that South Alabama would win that game last week, and I don't follow either team closely, but USA won 10 games a year ago. So
I didn't. I thought Tulane was. I thought Tulane was going to win. I knew Tulane was going to win, but I was impressed with how they handled South Alabama. South Alabama is a dynamic team across the front. They've got really good athletes. So the way that they were able to handle that, and Michael Pratt and his calmness, I think this is going to be a tight game, probably a field goal either way. I really do, because I think Tulane is really that good of a ball club under Willie Fritz. I'll go with Ole Miss to win this one, late in the fourth quarter, get Quinshad Judkins going and kind of lean on Tulane late. But man, I wouldn't be surprised at all if the Green Wave won this game. I really wouldn't.
Yeah, one reservation I have about Tulane is its star running back from a year ago is now playing ball in my hometown of Nashville for the Titans. So there's that too. But hey,
He was really
team didn't
good.
seem to miss a beat a week ago. I'm probably sleeping on Tulane too much at my peril. I just loved what Ole Miss did last week. Yes, it's Mercer, but just how many weapons it's got, scoring 73 points with just a very pedestrian day from Quinshon Judkins is just amazing. I'm going to take Ole Miss by about 10 in this one.
Ooh, all right. We'll see. I got Tulane covering, but Ole Miss winning.